Okay, thank you. Special meeting agenda, special meeting called to order. Um, First up on the agenda is roll call.
This one. Okay. Member Eric Inoy. Member Carlene Wolf. Here. Member Rollin Rabara.
Here.
Member Vice Chair Les Hanano.
Here.
And Chair Gerald Kosaki.
Here.
Thank you. Oh, call everybody.
I don't, you didn't call my name.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Member Brian Kushni.
present here.
Sorry, can we all also note the members who are not here?
Okay. Members who are not appearing at today's meeting is Member Rick Porter, Member Wayne Perrin Jr., and Member Derwin Ignacio.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is public statements. Do we have anybody? I don't see anybody from the public here. Is anybody from the public on Zoom that would like to make any statement? Okay, I don't see anybody on Zoom, but if anybody comes on Zoom, they can raise their virtual hand and to be acknowledged to speak. Okay, we can move on to the next item, which is item 3, business. It's a consideration on the process to appoint a permanent fire chief. The commission will consider the process for interviewing, selecting, and appointing a permanent fire chief in accordance with Rule 11 of the Fire Commission rules. As to the subject described below, the commission may discuss, deliberate, decide, and take action, including action to affirm, amend, rescind, or replace a decision previously made. First off, I'd like to discuss and address or just address the conflict of interest testimony that was given at the last meeting. And so Vice Chair Hanano is going to make a statement.
At the last meeting, the commission received written testimony raising a question about a potential conflict of interest involving a commission member. The state constitution requires that each county's code of ethics be administered by a separate, independent ethics commission. Consistent with that requirement, the county charter gives the Board of Ethics the authority to interpret the code of ethics, render advisory opinions, receive complaints, and conduct investigations. This commission has no authority to decide whether a violation has occurred and it would be improper to do so. The commission, therefore, took no action and made no findings. This is not a judgment on the merits. The question belongs to the Board of Ethics, the body that the law designated to decide it independently. Under the county code and the Board of Ethics rules, an officer may request an opinion about their own conduct. Any person, including individual commissioners or members of the public, may petition the board regarding an officer's conduct. An appointing authority may submit a request, and the Board of Ethics may act on its own initiative when appropriate. In any of those cases, however, it is for the Board of Ethics to determine what it takes up and when. The testimony that was received is a public record and is available on request. This commissioner's role is to conduct a fair and open process for selecting the next fire chief, and that is what the rest of this agenda addresses.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hanano. Okay, moving on. We are going to be addressing several issues here that I'll. Oh, okay. We can have our corp counsel do a briefing on that. Thank you.
Okay, so after the last meeting, I reviewed what occurred at the meeting and then found that there was still some gaps left in the process for hiring the chief. And some commissioners also had some ideas of how to do the process differently. So today, you guys are gonna address the decisions that you've made so far, as well as if you want to rescind some of the decisions, amend the decisions, or otherwise vote on other parts of the process that are currently lacking. So the first subject that you guys should discuss and vote on is how these scoring rubrics are going to be used. So at the last meeting, you accepted the scoring rubrics and you guys kind of discussed how they were going to be used, but as a commission, you didn't vote. So the first thing that you folks should discuss and vote on is how to use the scoring rubric. So whether or not the score is going to be the entire deciding factor is one option, which means that whoever gets the highest score is going to be appointed. Or the second option that you guys could use that was brought up by another commissioner is that you could use the scoring to narrow down to a pool of finalists. And then after that, you guys can discuss and select from the final pool. In that case, the scoring would just be used to narrow down to the pool, but wouldn't be the ultimate deciding factor. And then if you go that route, you would have to decide how to narrow down the pool using the scores, whether or not it's a top set of candidates, just like a fixed number, whether it's 3, 5, or such, or if it's going to be based on a point total within the top scoring or a percentage total within the top scorer. So I'll open it up for you guys to discuss that.
Okay, so just to recap, we have 3 options for this first item that,
Just the two.
okay, that we're gonna be discussing. We already agreed on the scoring rubric, how we're gonna score them. So that's good, unless you want to change that. If not, we're gonna be using that same scoring sheet that we had approved. So the process is now, what we can decide is, are we going to stay with the same process by saying the highest scoring member is selected as the fire chief? So that's option 1. We just stay with what was actually stated at the last meeting.
Sorry, as a clarification, although you guys discussed that part, you guys didn't decide it. So it wouldn't necessarily be staying with that decision.
I see.
That's an option that you guys could take.
Okay. And then option 2 would be to take all the scores and pick or narrow it down to the top 3, top 5, or whatever number we select. And from the top pool of candidates, the commission would decide by discussion on who, each commissioner would give their testimony, so to speak, on who they would select and why. So they would need to articulate for each candidate. And each commissioner would need to make that statement prior to the chief selection. So first of all, that would be option 2. And yeah, that's only 2 options that we're really gonna be considering right now. So if there's any,
That's other ideas.
yeah, unless anybody else has any other options that they would want to have discussed, or you can discuss on those 2.
Well, Commissioner Wolf, just wanted to clarify, you're talking about scoring for both the written and the oral? Both?
This is for a complete, yes, the
Both
written
together.
oral would be a combined score.
Here,
And then,
thank you.
yeah, in addition to that last score, which is professionalism. And so that the top scorers of that, that's going to be the scores. Anybody has any comments, discussion, questions?
Commissioner Kushni, so I'm in favor of what you're proposing as far as having, the oral, the written, and the professionalism narrow down, the candidates. What, from there, is there going to be, at that point, we're going to take a deeper dive into each candidate. So if they say the top three, into their resumes, their background, their work history, those things is there going to be more to the process
Yeah.
from?
So the work hit, if someone wants to come up, she can add on to this, but the work histories and everything they put on their resume, that was mainly just to make sure they met the minimum qualifications. So what you guys would decide, if you guys did narrow to a finalist pool, it would be decided based on other kind of job-related evaluation factors, not looking at their resume or cover letter, as those were just meant to determine who met the minimum criteria to move on to the next stage.
I mean, I know Commissioner Kushner brought this up in the past, but would we, again, get access to seeing the resumes or background of each candidate?
Hi, good morning. Director of Human Resources, Summer Tukiero. To answer your question, yes, when we provide the applicant information, it's going to be their complete application, including their resume and the cover letter. Some of the residency verification information, we are going to maintain that internally. Some of it was financial documents that were not redacted that the commission should not need. But you will be provided with the full application for review. And so to Cameron's point, while the application screening was just based on minimum qualifications, the commission can evaluate the information that's presented on the application.
Okay, question, when would we be able to get that information, the application and the resume, background, things like that?
So I believe at the last meeting, what we talked about was that HR would compile that information and then provide all of that to you with the written assessments prior to the oral interviews. So I believe with the assistance from Michael in the mayor's office, we would be compiling all of that applicant information, providing you with a written assessment prior to the oral interview.
So the day before the oral interview?
It would probably be the afternoon before. Yes, that was what was discussed at the last meeting.
Is that okay with the commission?
Commissioner Alano. So what if you narrow it down to the top 3 or 5, but we get more than 3 or 5? How do you determine? So like if you say, all right, we're going to pick the top 3 out of all the scores, but you get 5 guys that was on the top, how are you going to determine how you're going to, after that, drop it down to 3?
What do you mean by
So,
5?
so we doing assessment, right? On we scoring on
Right.
all the whatever. So what if you get, we say we're gonna pick the top 3, but you get 5, guys that, like, what if you get ties
Yeah,
for
so-
the third or fourth?
So if we have ties.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen if we get ties for
Exactly,
the
so
third
that,
place?
we need to decide on
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, I would say if we have ties, then that would extend the list. So if we stay with the top 3 and we have 3 ties, then it would be 5. We would end up with 5 candidates that we would decide upon.
So along
That-
that line too, you guys there's other options. It doesn't have to just be like top 3 based on just top 3. It could be anybody who scores within 10 points of the top scoring candidate, or 5 points, or can make it a percentage, 5%. So those are other options, which can
Right.
also help to deal with what if there was people who are super close. So there's different ways you can do a cutoff.
Commissioner Wolf, I was just wondering, because none of us here, the commissioners at the present time, weren't on the panel the last time the fire chief was hired. I was just wondering how they did it last time. Were you part of that?
I was not part of
process?
that, no.
Okay, so the question is, first of all, do we want to narrow it to the top 3 or top 5?
I think the first question would be whether or not you guys want to just
do
go
that
straight on
option.
scores,
Okay.
or second, whether it's
Okay,
not use
so-
the scores as just a tool.
So we got, one commissioner that would like to go with the top candidates and then decide on those. Any other commissioner has any other question or problem with that? If not, we can make a motion to approve that system first, and then we can decide on how we're gonna do it and how many candidates. So if someone would make a motion to go with that option, that we would narrow the finalist pool to the top X amount of candidates, and then from that, decide on picking the top candidate.
And just to clarify, you'd use the scoring rubrics to
Correct.
narrow.
Yeah, using the scoring rubric that we decided upon.
Commissioner Kushni, so I have one more question regarding this, and that is the scoring of the written interview. What's our timeline for scoring this? Are we going to be expected to have read and scored this by the next day? I'm just thinking logistically, we have commissioners that are, driving back and forth across the island. I just don't see how, we can get it done in that time frame. But I just want to clarify what our expectations are on that.
So that's another thing that you guys can address, which is another thing that will need to be addressed, whether or not you guys are going to even keep the August timeline or you're going to shift it to the September timeline. And if you guys shift it to the September timeline, you guys can also decide whether or not additional meetings are necessary. So everything kind of depends on how you guys decide first.
Yeah, so the question is, once the written assignment is completed and you would give that assignment, give each candidate's written answers to us as a commission and what the timeline would be for us to review it. And so right now we have, I think we have 2 days to review it. We have Thursday or the first day when they take the assignment, then you would forward it to us, and then we would have that night and the next night to review it and to score it, because the actual scoring is going to be on the 3rd day, right?
Commissioner Rivera, I know you had mentioned that you were not part of the first hiring the chief, but I know you were most recent with the police department. Did they actually go through this same sort of rubrics? And if you can answer that.
No, the rubrics were not the same, and the process was done differently, right? So the police commission narrowed down the applicants from the written interrogatory and then only invited, a set number of candidates to the interview portion. And then I believe they scored that interview portion separately and then made their decision from that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, discussion?
Can you just run through the timeline again? Is it Wednesday is the written, and we would get the results from the written Wednesday night email to us to start reviewing? Is that?
I'm not sure about the rules about whether or not that information can be sent via email or if that would be transmitted in hard copies. I know that the assessment, because you're allowing 3 hours, we were anticipating that we would start the assessment at about 9:30 in the morning and complete it, just after lunch. So it would be available from early afternoon as soon as it was completed.
Yeah, so that's also something that we have to address regarding the written exam, because basically the only things that you guys have adopted regarding the written exam was that it was gonna be 3 hours. Wait, let me, sorry.
Yes, 3 hours.
Let me find it. I miss. Oh, here we go. So at the July 21st meeting, you guys adopted the following rules related to the written assessment. That it was just gonna be 3 hours. It was gonna be handwritten only, no electronic devices, and that it was gonna have the standard protocol rules for proctored written examinations. So the process of HR transmitting it to you guys is an additional thing that you guys should decide today.
I think HR is asking if that is illegal. I mean, legally, can they email it to us?
Yeah, I don't, at this time, I don't see a legal reason why it couldn't be emailed.
So we would, at that point, after the written exam is, completed, we would be handing over all of the information to the commission. So I would kind of anticipate that distribution would be through the normal commission process through the commission secretary. So however that information is transmitted to the members, we would leave that to the commission to distribute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that would be, yes, an issue under the board packet rules. So it would be better, I think, to give it to them at the 27th meeting.
If I can, Mr. Chair, this is Kiera Wong, Deputy Corporation Counsel. So I think we're kind of jumping all over the place, and a lot of the decisions that need to be made can affect the timeline, and that the commission will need to consider whether it's even viable to hold that August 26th, 27th, 28th meeting dates, given the fact, HR still has to send notices to the applicants that has to include certain language to provide them with sufficient notice of the process. And we're already almost halfway into August. And so that's one of the things that the commission will need to consider is whether it wants to push those dates back to a September meeting date. So what I recall from the July 21st meeting is that there was going to be a written assessment on Wednesday, August 26th. And then there was going to be a 2-day special meeting scheduled for the 27th and 28th. The 27th was just going to be oral interviews. And the 28th was going to be your selection, deliberation, and appointment of the fire chief conditioned upon, passing the medical exam and all of that. So I think a lot of today's decisions will ultimately affect that timeline. So I wouldn't harp too strongly onto that August 26th, 27th, 28th date. It might be that the commission wants to keep the 27th date as a regular meeting date that you guys would normally meet. But I think there's a lot of decisions that need to be made that could push the actual interview written assessments out to a September date.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we should decide if we're gonna keep the August 27th date now or move that date back because of the logistical, I mean, basic logistical things. After we finish this, we would have to give it to HR. They have to put it in the letter that they're sending to the candidates. Then they will send it to the candidates and they give 7 days for the candidates to respond to that letter. And, you know, given right now is the 6th, probably the 10th would be the earliest they would be able to get that letter together and then give the candidates, would be 1 week. That would be the 17th already. And then from there, I don't know what else is, that we need to do after that. And if that would be kind of a little bit pressing.
It's just providing sufficient notice to the applicants so that they can make, if there's necessary, arrangements, travel, et cetera, in order to be present for both the interview and the written assessment. So, I think it's just providing sufficient notice so that the applicants can make necessary arrangements.
Okay.
We also haven't finalized those notices yet, so that would take a little bit of time. And then we do allow a full 7 days for applicant responses.
Yeah, so kind of to recap what Kira was saying, all the things you're bringing up are kind of dependent on how you guys vote regarding how you guys are going to consider the scoring. If you guys aren't going to change anything or all that, that could all impact how much time is needed to prepare the rest of the stuff. So I think it would be helpful to, I can run through all the things all the gaps and things that need to be addressed. And then we could hit them one by one. And then ultimately we will get to your question about the timing and all of that. So just to give you guys a breakdown of some of the gaps so number one was the scoring methodology. Although you guys adopted the scoring rubrics at the last meeting and discussed possibly just using scoring as the deciding factor, you guys didn't actually vote on that. So that's the first thing. And then dependent upon that too is if you go with the second option, using the scoring rubrics to just narrow down. The next question is whether or not you guys are going to keep the 5-point extra criteria, or if you guys are going to remove that and instead articulate on the record your selection of the finalists on the record based on, it could be the same criteria or it could be other parts of the written assessment or how you thought they did in the oral interview, etc. If you guys do away with the removal of, or if you guys remove the 5-point professionalism criteria, then that goes into what Gerald was talking about, that you guys would need to discuss on the record the basis for your selection of the finalists. And after that, we would have to discuss the scheduling, whether or not to move the August dates to September based on the changes or no changes that you guys make. Also, another thing that has to be addressed is whether or not to keep the August 27th meeting. We currently have it scheduled as the oral interview meeting, but if it moves to September, do you guys want to still keep the August 27th meeting just as a backup in case anything else comes up? The next is you guys adopted a bunch of stuff related to narrowing the public testimony time, about only requiring that they appear 15 minutes before the meeting without any kind of sequestering rules. The question is whether or not you guys want to do sequestering, which could improve fairness. Another thing is, are you guys still okay with not being provided the interview questions until the day of, which you already approved? Then we'll go over the written assessment rules that you guys voted on, whether or not additional ones are required. If you want to do any kind of additional safeguards, like not including the name. Also, how are all the scores and the documents going to get to you folks? And then we also have to talk about, I guess, safeguards if a commissioner has to leave during one of the two meetings. How are you guys going to deal with that? Whether or not they can still vote on the final candidate, or what's going to happen if someone has to leave during those 2 days? And also other kind of fairness precautions, such as a declaration, whether or not you guys are gonna give the same instructions during the oral interviews to all the candidates, whether or not you guys are gonna do conflicts of interest statements at the beginning. And
Yeah, I see.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a short recess.
Okay. 5 minutes. Okay, well, let's take a short 5-minute recess. We need to discuss some stuff. Thanks. Okay, can we call the meeting back to order? Out of recess? Okay, we just did a short recess just to organize how we're gonna proceed addressing the items on the agenda. So if sticking with section 3, number 1, we'll go one by one on the agenda to clarify it, to make it clear so that we don't kind of jump around. First one is written assessment and oral interview procedures, including format, duration, materials and equipment, proctoring and safeguards, order of candidates, time limits, candidate arrival and attendance, who poses the questions, follow-up questions, and reasonable accommodations for candidates. So Corp Counsel Cameron is gonna elaborate on what was decided upon at the last meeting. And we can, after he goes through that, then we can decide if we wanna add on any additional items to that or make any changes.
Okay, so to reiterate, at the July meeting, as to the written assessments, you folks voted to do 3-hour time limit, handwritten answers only, and no electronic devices. Are you folks okay with that, or is there anything that you want to add on to that part of what you've decided so far? And also that HR is going to proctor using their normal proctoring process and instructions.
Commissioner Wolf, so what is the timeline? When will the test be proctored? What
No,
what
no,
date are
so-
we looking at?
For now, we're just affirming or amending what you guys have already decided on.
Okay,
And then we'll get into scheduling when we reach item 3A5.
So if anybody has any objections, then we'll just have him continue. So you just can continue until, unless somebody has some objection or some amendment they want to make to the, or changes to the process.
Okay, so I guess the silence is that you guys are gonna keep that. Okay, the next part of the written assessment is how are the scores going to, or the written assessments going to be transmitted to you? That's something to be decided for the process. So in reconsidering, I think under Sunshine, it would not be board packet material because it would typically be able to be withheld under the UIPA. So I don't think we're going to be restricted by Sunshine Law for you transmitting that
Phys-
portion to them.
Physically.
Yeah, I mean physically or electronically.
So as I mentioned, I believe that once the information is provided, it would be that where HR is going to transmit that to the commission via the commission secretary for the commission secretary to then distribute to the commissioners. So we will provide that documentation in physical form to the commission secretary, and then it can be distributed through whatever your normal distribution process is.
So would that be able to, the documents be able to be scanned and emailed to us?
Yes, that's what the normal process is.
Okay. So that would be on the day of the written assessment?
It would be in the afternoon after the written assessment is completed, yes.
Okay, and for the secretary, you'll be or transferring it to the commission secretary, and the commission secretary just confirming that they could get it out to the commission on that day? Okay. Is that okay? Okay, we need to put it to a vote. Can I have somebody make a motion for that process?
Commissioner Kushner make a motion that the written assessment will be emailed out to the commissioners after it's completed and ready for distribution.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Shinano, second.
Okay, Commissioner Hanano, second. Any discussion before we have any public testimony on this? Anybody on Zoom? Any virtual hands? I don't see any. So we can take a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so motion is passed. Okay, we can go to the next item.
Sorry, Chair, I have one question going back to number one. I understand that the format for the written assessment would include time, their candidate arrivals, accommodations, et cetera. Is that going to be the same for the oral interview where they're going to be sequestered? Is that part of this, or is that something different?
On the sequestered part?
Yeah, for
Okay.
the oral interview part.
Yeah, we really didn't discuss this sequestration yet. I would say we're gonna discuss and vote on whether we wanna give a notice to the candidates and request that they sequester themselves during the time of the interview. It's a legal right that they can be in the meeting, but we can ask them, and if the commission usually asks the candidates, chances are they would abide by it. So that's something we can vote upon.
Okay, so anything else regarding written assessments? Would you guys want the candidates' names on the assessments given to you, or would you want it randomized or with a number, kind of anonymized? That's something for your consideration. Or is there any other safeguards you want to implement to keep fairness with the written assessment?
And I thought we randomized the oral interviews at the last meeting.
No, so sorry, we're still on written assessment.
Written.
Oh,
So the question is, when we get the written answers, the written assessment answers, do we want them to have their identification of who the candidate is on that paper, or keep it anonymous?
Say that down again, Joe.
Commissioner Ibarra?
Say that down again. Repeat that again, sorry.
Okay, so when they're right there, they do the answers for the written assessment. Do we want to know who wrote each paper? Or do we want to grade them based only on the content?
Only we want to know who? Oh, no.
Commissioner Wolf, are we going to be getting their resumes before the written exam or?
So under the current process that we discussed, HR would be transmitting all of the applicant data to the commission with the written assessment after the written assessment is completed. Together. We could,
Thank you.
though, provide the applicant information, the application, the resume, et cetera, but still provide you with anonymized written assessments. So if you wanted that to remain anonymous until your final tally of scores at your special meeting on Friday, we could present you the information from the written assessments, anonymized for scoring, and then later disclose the names if the commission chooses.
when we receive the resumes, that will also include any written letters of recommendation for the candidate?
There were no letters of recommendation requested at the time that the application was submitted, but what you will be receiving is the full application, including the resume and cover letter that you requested.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else has any discussion, opinions on this? So, I think if we just keep the written assessment portion anonymous, that would take out any, view or, chance of us having any, bias, bias to specific candidates, because, I mean, again, just looking at at the concern from one of the members that there might be bias, so, that would take that out, that portion out.
Okay, that'd be by vote too, if you want to adopt that.
Yes, so, if somebody would like to make a motion, either way, they can make a motion on, whether keep the anonymity or, have their names identified on their written assessment. But we should make a motion, well, one way or the other. Okay, if somebody would like to make a motion.
Commissioner
I'd like to make a
Obara,
motion.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Barbara.
I just got a quick question. So, I did hear, Cameron say in regards to, job performance. Do we get any of that prior to that or no? Or is that something that's available?
That information was not requested as part of the application.
Yeah, so when I was talking
Yeah.
about job relatedness, I was talking about in respect to if you guys went with the option to only use the scoring rubrics to select a final pool of candidates,
Gotcha.
then at that point, who you select the final pool from, whether or not you guys need to state a job related reason for selecting the finalists. But right now we're on written assessments.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay,
Commissioner Wolf, I'd like to make a motion. Thank you.
okay,
That we have the written proctored exam anonymous instead of having the names attached to each exam.
okay, so the motion was made to have, the written assessment, when given to us, the answers be anonymous, so no names or identification of the candidate on the, written papers. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. We have a second, Commissioner Inoue. Okay, any, testimony from the public and discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion has passed. Next item.
Sorry, can I just, a point of clarification? When would the commission like those names to be identified?
I think after, after the scoring. So whether it be, I guess we're gonna have to have it identified by the third day. Well, after we score it, then we can send it, we submit it, then the names can be added to the papers or the numbers, yeah. So after we score it, which probably would be, I mean, at the latest, the third day of the third day of the assessment.
Okay, so should we just plan on providing the names on Friday for the special meeting then, on Friday morning?
Are you asking when the names are going to be made public or to all of us, or just when the names will be attached to the written assessment?
Well, when HR would provide the list of names associated with the anonymous, probably numbers that we will use on the written assessment. I'm just wondering when you would like us to transmit the names to match the numbers on the written assessment.
Well, after the scoring is completed. So whenever, if we complete the scoring, probably would be on the third day of the assessment. So after the oral interview, unless, that'll give us 2 nights or 2 days and nights to review the assessment.
Okay.
Okay, the final thing for written assessments is what you folks want to do if a candidate is a no-show to the written assessment, if they're late or if they can't attend. What will you guys do then?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Okay, so if a candidate either cannot make the written assessment or doesn't finish the written assessment, what is the effect? What do you guys want to happen?
Disqualification?
Commissioner Ibarra, I think a proper notification obviously comes in to play here as well too, right? So how long is required for you to get that information to them regarding when their assessment will be scheduled?
So once the notices are transmitted, we allow 7 days for the applicants to respond. But normally, we wouldn't be scheduling an assessment for approximately 2 weeks out from that 7-day window for the response. So I would say from the time that the notices are sent, it would be approximately 3 weeks from when the notice is sent to when that assessment would occur.
So the question
But
would
again,
be-
depending on scheduling for when the commission, if we're not moving forward with the August dates, when we're able to schedule in September.
Right.
But we would like to provide reasonable notice to the candidates so that they have ample opportunity to make any necessary arrangements.
Right.
So as a guideline, that would be 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think, there are a couple of things. One is that he said if the candidate cannot appear or cannot make the assessment. So that's one item that we can decide upon. I mean, given proper notice, I'm not sure, what is a reasonable time for us to expect them to be able or available. Like if we, depending on when we send out the notice to the candidates, if a 2-week notice is sufficient or maybe longer. We don't know where they're coming from anyway, but the second, I think that Cameron said is that if they do during the written and they cannot finish it, I mean, I think, I don't know in what situation they wouldn't be able to finish it once they started. But if they don't have enough time, I mean, that's just the time limit. But what situation you would think that they would?
Well, I mean, the more important one is like, what if they don't show up to the written exam? It's
Right,
kind of
okay.
my point.
Yeah, okay. So if they say they're coming and they don't show up, then that's a disqualification. I mean, obviously, I think on any of them, the written or oral interview. So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear cut. If they say that they're coming and they don't show up, I don't think we want that person as the fire chief.
Commissioner Ibarra, Commissioner Kosaki, so all this information got pushed over to all the current candidates now, yeah? So they know pretty much what's coming forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, so to me, 2 weeks or even a little bit more than that is ample time for them to make proper adjustments, yeah. Especially since they know it's coming. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, do we have to make a motion on that?
Yeah, to just make
Okay,
it
so
the rule.
the motion would be that if any candidate does not show up for either the written or oral interview, they are deemed disqualified.
Commissioner Hanano, I motion that if the candidate does not appear for the written or the oral, they would be disqualified for the job.
Thank you. You have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Commissioner Ibarra, second. Any public testimony? If not, in discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we can move on.
Can I just have one additional point of clarification? For the written assessment, we will be asking, or the proposed draft requests that the applicants come 15 minutes prior to the scheduled exam. So for our regular written exams that we administer for other civil service positions, if an applicant appears for the exam late, we do allow them to take the written exam, but we don't allow them any additional time. So in the event that an applicant were to arrive, if a scheduled exam is at 9:30 and they don't arrive until 9:45, they can still take the exam, but we don't allow them any additional time. But I'm just wanting to get feedback from the commission regarding applicants if they arrive late.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, I know Brian and I come from the department, but my feeling, and I know Brian, we had situations in the past, but you know, it's really, to me, it's important to be punctual. I mean, especially for something as important as this. And my feeling would be if they don't show up by the start time, they're disqualified. But I leave it up to the commission.
Um, I concur with that, especially if you're asking them to be there 15 minutes early. If they're not, if it's going to start at 9:30, the doors should be closed at that point. That's, kind of, they're given ample opportunity. They can make arrangements to make sure that, they're getting here early, on time. Obviously, there could be extenuating circumstances, they start driving and there's a road closure or something like that. I don't know how you would account for that, but if it's on their own accord that they're late, they should be locked out.
Yeah, yeah, I was just gonna mention something that, I mean, extenuating circumstances, and we can put a clause in there for that. But, we would have to determine what is an extenuating circumstance. I mean, it would have to be pretty severe and significant. So, just being late without any, legitimate excuse, like, I don't know, even like, there was traffic. I mean, I think, unless there was a fire and they shut down Shadow Road and they had to come all the way around Hamakua or something like that, that was, or there's an earthquake or something to that effect. Yeah, if, something as important as this, you would make sure, I know I would probably be there close to an hour before just to make sure, nothing happens before the time being, and just be in my car studying or going over things. But again, that's me. So I leave it up to the commission on deciding how we want to handle that.
Fire chief is a very important position, so they need to be punctual.
Okay, so if we want, someone can make a motion saying that if the person or candidate is not present at the start time of the written assessment or oral interview, um, pending some extreme significant incident that happens, they would be deemed disqualified.
So moved.
Sorry, I would recommend that you kind of clarify what an extenuating circumstance would be. At
Y-
least the kind of class of things. that we
Yeah,
have.
you know, the only thing when you start identifying, okay, you know, if a tidal wave hit, if an earthquake hit, if a fire, you know, we can identify all these things.
Catastrophic.
We're gonna miss something, and then that one thing might be on there, and oh, what about this? There was a major accident and that closed the road, something that we didn't identify, and now we're gonna say, oh, it's not on here. So I understand that what is deemed an extenuating circumstance, and that's, I think that's something that um, maybe would the commission be able to make that decision after? You know, if he comes and he says, this is the reason that happened, that he was late, then, you know, HR, I don't want to put anything on HR, so they can allow him to take the written, and then that excuse would have to go in front of the commission to see, and the commission would decide if that was an extenuating enough circumstance for that person to be late. I don't know.
I think generally I would advise that it should be established beforehand rather than like post hoc, but it's up to you folks.
Yeah, because if he comes late at that time, I mean, how would we be able to assemble and make a decision prior, you know?
Well, I
at
mean,
that
you
time?
could set out the general categories like a road closure, anything beyond the candidates,
Okay.
all based on
If you-
natural or.
Would you have something in HR that has items that maybe, I mean, road closures or any severe um, environmental conditions or?
So that isn't part of our notice because again, we do allow applicants to come late. So all of our language has to do with, not allowing the additional time. So we don't have any prepared statements related to that.
So Chair, if I may, Deputy Corporation Counsel Kira Wong, so if I'm understanding DHR, they're saying if an applicant arrives late, they'll let them take the exam, but they will not give them extra time to complete the exam. So all the applicants will have 3 hours to complete the exam. If they arrive hour and a half late, they get an hour and a half to finish. I think it gets difficult when you're trying to think of scenarios that might qualify as an excuse when, is it an exhaustive list? Is it not? It's going to put you folks, I think, in a difficult position. So if you create the rule now, it's fair to everybody and you don't have to think about later what decision you have to make if someone tries to come and say,
Okay, so if we continue with that, I'm sorry, but if we do that and allow that, can we have the name of the person that had showed up late?
I think what I was going to suggest is that for all candidates, we could document on their exam the time that they arrived, and then the commission would have that available. You would know what time the exam was scheduled and what time they arrived, so that if they arrived late, you would have that information and you could address that
Yeah,
later.
okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, obviously we're gonna use that. I mean, I'm gonna use that on the professionalism, but and since we're moving on to the selection process on, but that would be a major concern for me. So I'm okay with that. Just if you guys okay, we just let them take the exam and just note down the times that they came. I don't anticipate anybody coming late. I mean, but just in case.
Um, obviously, this is for the written exam, and I'm okay with what was just discussed. Is the same go for the oral?
Yes.
So if they're not, if their slotted time is from 9:30 to 10 and they arrive at 9:45, they just get the 15 minutes? Or is that out?
I think that's something we can discuss in the next section when we talk about oral interviews. I think right now we're just trying to wrap up what happens with respect to the written assessment.
Okay. Which will be related to that, but we can just finish with the written interview side, written assessment. Yeah. Can't we just lump it together? I mean, because it's the same, tardiness.
I think for purpose of clarity, I just want to make sure we're not all getting confused with the different sections. It is all in agenda item 3A1,
Right.
but so I think this is the last thing we're wrapping up for the written assessment, and then we can immediately go into the discussion of how you want to handle the oral interviews.
Okay, so is that okay with everybody on the oral assessment? We just let everybody take the written, even if they show up late, but then they'll have a time noted of the time that they showed up. So we would know who, if anybody came in late. Okay, can somebody make a motion?
Is this just for the written or for also the oral?
Just for the written.
So it'll be a different rule for the oral?
We're gonna do the oral right after this.
Okay. Commissioner Wolf, I'd like the HR where they will write down the time that they come in so that we know if they were tardy or not. Make a
Okay.
motion for that.
And do we have a second?
And this is just for the written.
Commissioner Hana, second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Any public testimony? If not, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so they will be able to take the exam, less the amount of minutes that they lost and written with the written amount, a timestamp on it. Thank you. Okay, next is oral interview. Can we just discuss that oral interview on that, since we're already on that subject on tardiness? If somebody does not show up for his time for the oral interview, what actions should we take?
Well, it is 3A1, so we probably should address it,
Yeah, no, right now we're just,
written and oral.
yeah, so do you want to allow him in or do you say,
So my opinion is that if they are late for the oral, they should be disqualified. That's just my opinion.
okay, but then again, we're looking at if there are extenuating circumstances, what if there was a reason why they're.
Yeah.
I mean, we would know, I mean, if there was something significant that happened being here.
My personal feeling is that it should be pretty cut and dry. If they're not here, they should be disqualified. And I think extenuating circumstances you can just keep, they can say family emergency, they can, it can go on and on and on. I think,
Right.
if they set their time, they should be here at that time. And if not, disqualified.
Okay. I'm going to, then
You
if
want the
somebody,
job, show up.
somebody would like to make a motion?
Commissioner Hana, I motion that if a candidate is not on time for his oral interview, he will be disqualified.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Inoue, second. Any discussion, no public testimony? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's clear. Motion has passed. Next item.
Okay, we're still on the oral, now we're on oral interview process. So I'll recap what you guys voted on regarding the oral interview process at the last meeting.
We didn't need to approve the July 21st minutes.
Where it's not prepared yet. Okay, so for the oral interview process, you folks decided that the interview order would be randomly drawn, in which case you did randomly draw it. And you have a set order. There's a 5-minute maximum per oral question and a requirement that candidates arrive at least 15 minutes before their time slot. And you decided that there would be no sequestering.
We were gonna discuss that if we can make a request to the candidates.
Yeah, so that's something that you can decide today. So the first step would be, are you folks still okay with doing the interview order that you decided at the last meeting?
Yes, so we already voted on we picked the numbers and all that, so we're good with that.
Okay, the next one is the 5-minute maximum per oral question.
5-minute maximum, still
Still
good
okay
with
with
that?
that?
You're good with that? And we're
Okay,
gonna have that clock or something to show the time.
okay, so the next one is whether or not, what the requirements or what safeguards you guys want to implement.
Okay, so safeguards meaning that if, to have other candidates in the room while we're doing the interview. So like I mentioned earlier, if we can make a request, and how would that be, with a letter or would be put on the paper that is sent out to them?
So we could incorporate that into the notice that schedules them for the written assessment and the oral interview. We can put in a notification and ask them to acknowledge that the commission is requesting that the applicants be sequestered during the interview process. And so we can come up with language to put that into the notification and have them return some kind of signed acknowledgement that they're acknowledging that they
Yeah.
will be sequestered.
Okay, so that's legal, right? So we just making a request and having them acknowledge the request, not saying that they are required to be sequestered, correct?
Yeah, yes, Your Deputy Corporation Counsel Kiera Wong. So just to back up a little bit, on July 21st, the commission decided that it did not want to have a sequestering process, that applicants would simply show up 15 minutes before their interviewed scheduled time. However, we did want to bring up, while the commission cannot require it, sequestration, in the interest of fairness, the commission can request, which can be identified in the letter, the notice to the candidates, that they sequester in a designating waiting room that we can help set up, that we can provide for them until their interview time, and then, of course, release after their interview is completed. We can have in the notice that all 8 candidates report to the fire commission meeting at the start of the meeting, and then someone can escort them to the waiting room to be sequestered. We can ask that they not be on any devices so that no one's streaming, because remember, the meeting's going to be streamed. So we can ask that devices are put away. And again, this is all to just ensure a fair process to the candidates and to put in those safeguards that the commission, I think, should reconsider. And again, we can help HR with the language in the notice to the candidates so that they're fully advised of what to expect. So that's the basis of having the commission take another look at that issue of
Okay.
sequestering.
So the only thing, a concern I would have with that is that all 8 candidates would have to be in the room, all arrive at the same time and be here for the whole entire day. Whereas, I mean, I'm okay with them not arriving all at the same time, but The only thing is like if they're going, we're requesting sequestering is from Zoom too, because that would be available on Zoom. I see what you're saying. So, okay.
Yeah, so the only way for you guys to have actual control over that portion would be for them to all show up at the same time.
Right, right. I see. I don't know.
For me, in the interest of fairness, I kind of concur what Corp Counsel is saying.
Okay. And then, so the only thing is, as far as the meals, so what happens with that?
So that would be up to you guys too. We could figure out the logistics of providing snacks and meals too at the lunch break. So these are stuff that for your guys' consideration would be setting up a waiting area, having someone monitor, a no device rules within that within the monitoring area. That if they're gonna take breaks, that someone should observe them at least going into the bathroom or such. And when you're gonna release the candidates. So if after their interview, are they allowed to leave?
Oh, I see.
So
Okay, so the item that is up for discussion, first of all, is that we're gonna sequester everybody, which I think that would be good. Logistical items, it's not for us to decide, right? I mean, do we have to decide the logistical?
well, you can delegate the authority to, I would think my office and probably with mayor's office's assistants
Okay.
to run the logistics.
Okay, so that part is okay. The only other item is, once they complete their interview, would they be allowed to leave for the day? Or do we want to have them stay in the room for the remainder of the day? Probably, yeah, I don't know. I would think if they leave would be better, because I know they're in competition with each other, but I mean, and we would have a monitor with them all the time anyway. But I don't see any reason why they should have to stay.
Yeah, so the purpose of the sequestering, right, would be pre-interview to make sure that nobody gets a copy of the questions or hears of the questions before their actual
Right.
interview. So I think after their interview is completed, it doesn't, I don't see a reason why the commission would require them to go back and wait. I do think the applicants would come back the next day, obviously, for the actual deliberation and selection. So I don't think there's a need, unless the commission thinks otherwise, for the applicants to stay after their interviews are completed.
Okay. So if somebody want to make a motion, I mean, I'm okay with that.
Commissioner Ibarra, what if they decided to stay?
They
We wouldn't even give that option.
They can stay. I mean, I don't think we can, yeah, we can, you have to get out of here. No,
Right.
I think it's okay, but they are allowed to leave. They are allowed to leave. Yeah.
I'll make a motion, request to sequester the candidates and that they be allowed to leave once their interview is complete.
Okay, so the motion is that we will make a request to the candidates that they will all be sequestered to all arrive at the same time in a room. And like what Cameron was saying, that we would have a monitor and the logistical things would be taken care of. But after their interview, they will be allowed to leave.
Okay, is that your motion, Commissioner Kushney?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Inoue, any discussion, public testimony? Okay, if not, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
Okay, another thing regarding the oral interview process that you guys have previously adopted. So at the June 25th meeting, you guys voted to have the chair ask the oral interview questions, but the entire commission, including the chair, score. And that still stands? Okay. And the next part is you guys adopted the candidate interview time slots with the first interview starting at 9:30 a.m. with interviews every 45 minutes thereafter with a lunch break after the fourth candidate. Are you guys still okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this part, I'm asking you whether or not you affirm that vote or would like to reconsider. So,
Affirm.
okay, so next we can move on to the evaluation criteria and scoring. So at the July 21st,
Okay.
sorry, you can read the
Yeah,
agenda.
evaluation criteria and scoring, including the rating scales and the points allocated to each criterion, descriptors for score levels, written justification of scores, and commissioner participation in and eligibility to score each portion of the process.
Okay, so to recap, at the last meeting on July 21st, you adopted the oral scoring rubric, which was 6 questions rated at 5 points each for a point total of 30 points. And for the written assessment, it was 7 questions with 5 points each for a total of 35 points. And an additional criterion of up to 5 points to make the total scores 70 points. However, while you folks discussed using score as the sole decider, it was never actually voted on. So this is your guys' opportunity to either elect to go at that process in which the scoring is the deciding factor, or if you would like to use the scoring rubrics just to narrow down to a final pool, and that final pool can either be defined by a fixed number of candidates, or it could go by the scoring, say 5 to 10 points within the first top score, or by a percentage.
Okay, so this is kind of related to the next item too, which is selection methodology and voting.
Sorry,
But
yeah.
this is more just the scoring to see if we're going to use that same scoring method, however, and use the scores to narrow the pool down to 3 or 5, whatever you decide, or leave it as is right now, where we just the highest score gets the selected as the fire chief. So as we spoke earlier, I think that we had discussed that if we narrow the pool down to the top three highest scores, and if there is a tie, that'll just add on to that list. So if you have 2 that are tied for first or second or third, that'll just add on one more person, one more candidate to the selection process. Okay, and then as far as selecting, we'll talk about that later. We're just deciding on if we're using the scores to narrow it down to 3 candidates.
I concur with narrowing it, using it to narrow down to say
Okay, so
3 candidates.
So that is using the current scoring method that we approved upon, and then just narrowing it down based on that score, the top 3 scores.
So we're talking about written scores or both written and oral?
Yes, the written, oral, and
Both.
the professionalism, yes. That's a, yeah, aggregate score.
From an HR perspective, I'll just raise one item for the commission to consider. When selecting the top 3 candidates, there may be a large disparity in those points, right? So if it's a total score of 70, for example, if your top score was 60 and then the next person scored 40 and the third person scored 30, is that demonstrating equivalent fitness and ability for the position of fire chief? So I'll just, I just provide that to the commission, that if you're just looking at the top 3 from that numeric perspective without any other parameters on it, those scores may not reflect a range that is considered equivalent, but I'll just leave that to the commission.
Yeah, so my thinking on that is, this is, I know a lot of times when we do assessment score or when the assessment stations or scoring, it's based on their knowledge of certain items. But in the interview, we're basing them on different categories and different items, different criteria. So I think the scoring, whether it be, 70 or 40 or 60, it's just based on the subjectivity of the scoring of the commission. So my opinion is, I think just the top 3, if you have 70 or somebody that has 68 and somebody at 40 and 30, that would be the top 3, because obviously the remainder of them would be in the 30s or 20s or whatever. So my opinion is that we still just take the top 3, because if we just decide that we're going to eliminate somebody that's far down, like in the 40s or 30s, then we're going to end up with the same criteria that we currently have, where we're just taking the top score, which we don't want. We want to have some input into who's going to, or one of the who's going to be the next chief. So that's my opinion. So it's up for discussion.
I concur with that. I mean, some of the things that I was thinking about is that we use this written and oral and professionalism to narrow down to the top 3. And then at the next meeting, these, whatever timeline we decide, we allow the top 3 candidates, say 15 minutes to give their final say, or a speech or a presentation on why they're the best candidate, what they bring to the table, their short-term, long-term goals, whatever it may be, their thought process in selecting a deputy chief. And then we take everything into consideration: their oral, their written scores, their professionalism, their background, their resume history, their work history, and their final oral presentation, all inclusive, to decide, each commissioner decide for themselves who they think would be best.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? I think that's good. I mean, that's so, again, just trying to get in a nutshell that we're gonna be, or if we make a motion, we're deciding on whether we're just gonna use the scores, written, oral, and the professionalism score, and narrow it down to the top 3, and from the top 3, then we'll be able to look at the background, resume, and all that, and then from that decide who we would select.
Correct. I mean, just my personal opinion too, but I think each candidate should be given like a final opportunity to state why they're the best candidate. You know, that's just my thought on it.
Okay. Okay, so when would when would the candidate be able to come in and give that last statement?
I think that would be determined in the final portion with the timeline, and I would think it would be at like the next month's meeting or something like that. And then after weighing, you know, the, all the previous criteria, the oral, the written, professionalism, their resumes, their background history, work history, at the next meeting, we give them that chance, 10 or 15 minutes, whatever the commission decides, to give a presentation on what their short-term, long-term goals, whatever, how they're going to pick a deputy, why they're best for the position. And then after their presentations, we weigh everything and then we vote after, as far as who the.
So
we think-
this is on the third day.
This would be, yeah, I mean, depending on the timeline, it may be, into September. Are you thinking 3 days in a row, they'd give that presentation on the third day this month? Or not have that at all? I'm just throwing it out as an idea, to.
No, I'm just trying to understand what you're trying to say.
Commissioner Wolf, isn't that, we could include it with the 5 minute, or what was it, 10 minute for the professionalism portion of it?
Yeah, that.
How much did we allow? 10
that
minutes?
5 minutes is not a question. That's only our evaluation of their professionalism. But so
Yeah.
this is, I mean,
This is,
after everything is over, then you want them to come in and before we make a decision?
that was my thought on whatever they wanted to talk about themselves. what
Okay,
they-
because right now, I mean, the plan was on the third day, we're gonna be selecting the chief, yeah? So you're saying is to extend it, so without selecting them on the third day and we're having another meeting where they can come back and give a presentation to us?
That was my thought, but, that's just my thinking on it.
Included in the-
I didn't think that this timeline was gonna be realistic. Maybe it is. And I just felt it gave each candidate, of the top three an opportunity to come in and shine or not shine, but again, I'm just one vote. So, that's just kind of my thinking, is that we can weigh all of the information that we have on each candidate, because it is an important decision for, in a lot of regards, for the fire department, the community, for us, so I think it gives us the best opportunity to try to make a good decision. That's just kind of where I stand.
Yeah. Anybody else has any comment, questions?
I kind of agree, Commissioner Rivera. I agree on that. And excuse me, but I wasn't obviously at the last meeting. But the way how it is gonna supposedly roll out. So we obviously do the assessment, then at the end of everything, assessment and oral, then we start scoring from that point on. And we come up with the proper, whatever, 70, I think the highest score would be 70, yeah, okay. And then, what you're seeing, Brian, is we go to the end of all of that and still bring them back in for a 5-10 minute or whatever, I mean.
Thought that was going to be their time, the professionalism, to tell us why they want the position.
Sorry, the professionalism, 5 points is just to be used during the oral interview evaluation. It was not a separate, question or portion of the oral interview.
So they wouldn't be able to handle it at that time.
No, that's nothing. That has nothing to do with it. All the, what the candidate would want to say to the commission, right now is just on the interview, at the interview. So,
I think it might be helpful to break it down into separate votes first. First, you guys can decide whether or not you want the scoring to just be the sole deciding factor, or if you want to use option 2, which is to use the scoring to narrow down a final pool and then define what that final pool will be, how the final pool will be decided.
okay,
And then from there, you can
okay.
talk about how to go. From
So
there.
first of all, can somebody make a motion to use this current scoring method to reduce the pool down to 3 candidates, the top 3 candidates?
I move to use the option 2 where we narrow it down to 3 candidates.
Okay, and if, in addition, if there is a tie, then we just add on to that top 3.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a second.
I'd second.
Okay, Commissioner Wolf, second. Any discussion or public testimony? Yeah, all in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so motion has passed. We narrowed it down to the top 3. So once we have the top 3 candidates on the third day, really the candidates are not there. But we would have the scores. We would tally the scores on that day and tally the written, oral, and with the professionalism. And then the top 3 candidates, from that 3 names, we would have each commissioner articulate who they would select and why of the 3 candidates. They can say, if any concerns they have of the other 2 or whatever reason they have, but each commissioner would have a chance to give their opinion on who they would select. And at the end of that, then the plan was, or the option is that we would select the chief from that. But if you want to have the 3 candidates come in at that time after, we can, but we won't know who the top 3 candidates are until that day. So it'll be hard for us to tell the candidates to show up again, unless if we prolong the process to the following meeting, then that will just prolong the selection process until we hear from the candidates. I mean, personally, I think I would be good with just going with that 3 top candidates and having a decision made at that time. Because I think, once we go to the candidates, we probably would have a good idea of the candidates itself and themselves. And, yeah, every candidate can say, whatever they want. I mean, I think whatever they have to say to promote themselves with the department, I think they're going to be saying it in their interview, personally. But
Is that one of the oral questions?
Sorry, we can't
What-
discuss the
Cannot talk about
actual.
any of the
Well,
questions.
because that would cover it.
Yeah, we cannot talk about the question, sorry. So I don't know, if you can make a motion, either way, so we can get this process going.
So if that, Commissioner Ibarra, if that was a choice for us to do that, would there be any time period when we actually could pull that off or no? Just, as far as them coming in basically to sell themselves.
Would have to be probably a next commission meeting.
Uh,
Yeah, so probably a month.
Gotcha.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, Kira Wong, Deputy Corporation Counsel, I think some of the consideration you guys should weigh is if we're simply asking the top 3 candidates to come in to give a 10-minute, why should we pick you or whatever it is, I think you should weigh that on the burden that the candidates might have to carry in, scheduling to come back again at a later time, a different month for a 10-minute presentation. If the commission wants to require that they give their last statements on the last day, the 3rd day, if that's what the commission decides, then we can work with HR to include in the notice that please be advised, you may be asked to come back on the last day, so schedule accordingly. Because again, if it's just going to be their last opportunity to tell the commission why they think they should be picked, then I think you have to weigh the amount of time we're giving them versus what they're gonna have to do in regards to scheduling. They might be off island, right, to come back again.
Mhm. Okay, so, somebody want to make a motion? Um,
I guess from my perspective, not knowing, none of us know the interview questions and what's going to be covered in all of that, which is, all due to fairness, and I'm okay with that. I think there may be some value to having the candidates maybe come in the last day and be able to speak for 5 or 10 minutes on things that maybe weren't covered in the interview that they want to just speak on before making our decision. So I think as Corp Counsel just stated, that if everybody is notified that whoever makes the top 3 may be asked if they so choose to come back and speak, for 5 or 10 minutes, whatever we decide, to give themselves that last opportunity.
Okay, I mean, they can put it that they may, yeah, so it would be that they may be requested to come back on the last day.
And I think, for them to come back, it would be, they could come back and speak on a topic that they choose for that time, not something was part of the process.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that, as long as we can complete the selection process by that day. Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Okay, wait,
We need to make a
yeah.
motion, yeah.
Make a motion that, on the 3rd day, we allow, the top 3 candidates to make their final statements. And, that we start the selection process after that.
Can we word it that the commission would have the option of having the candidate come in on the 3rd day, depending on if the interview goes well and, it's clear that you know which candidate you're gonna select or whatever, we may not have to because, have the candidates come in. I'd rather do that than just go through the motion just to have them come in to make a statement if we it's pretty clear that we know which candidate we're going to be selecting. So I just wanted to have, we can have that motion, but with the option of having a candidate come in on the third day instead of that the candidate will come in on the third day.
Sorry, if I may, Kira Wong, Deputy Corporation Counsel. I thought that the finalists, only the finalists would be invited back based on the written assessment, oral interviews, and the additional criteria on rating scores, that only the top three, the top three would, as the pool of finalists, would be allowed to come back on the third day to give their last statements to the commission.
Yeah, but it's not that they would have to come back on the third day, is that after the interviews, the commission would have the option to have them come back on the third day.
You mean because we don't know what the top three are gonna be right now?
We're not,
or what do you
we're
mean?
not gonna know until after our interviews.
Yeah, correct. So the scores will have to be finalized by
Right.
the end of oral interview day number 2.
Right, and at that time, we can say, you know what, now, we would like to have the top three
Yes.
candidates come
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Rather than, yes, top three candidates is gonna need to come back on that day.
Well, they should, but yeah, I mean, we can put in the letter that you may be asked to come back on the third day.
No, I know for them, it may be asked, but for us as a commission, that if we can still have the option of deciding that the candidates would not be needed to come back on the third day.
In fairness to the process, I would advise against that
Why is that?
because the commissioners will individually write their scores for the written assessment, oral interviews, and additional criterion to create the pool of finalists, right? So it would be arbitrary if you receive the pool of finalists and say, in your mind, I didn't like any of these finalists, I want somebody else to come back. I thought the process was the top three were going to be invited as the final pool of candidates.
No, I understand that. We're gonna have the top three candidates that we're gonna select from,
Correct.
but it's not that it's mandatory that we have to have them come back.
So I think that's a part of what the commission needs to decide is if we're going to allow them the 5 to 10 minutes or their last statements on the last day to come back and give to the commission.
Right,
prior.
and that's what we're discussing right now. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was in his motion.
yes.
My feeling is that, if they really want this position, that, coming back on the last day.
Oh, no, I understand that part. It's for us as a commission. I mean, if having them needing to come back, because if we get the interview and the interview clearly states, I mean, they state what they can do and stuff in the interview, then we would be able to make a decision that way. I just didn't want to bind our hands by saying we have to have this done, but it's up to the commission. If they want to do it that way, it's fine with me.
Commissioner Wolf, I think what Gerald is saying is the commission as a whole might have a consensus on the one individual that we want to hire. So the three candidates coming back, it won't be necessary if we all come to an agreement on that one person.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to waste anybody's time if we don't think that there would be a viable candidate, so. I
So
just wanted
this-
us to have an out, in case we don't want the candidates to come.
Yeah, Commissioner Obar, I just got a question. So after we actually do all the scoring, and then if you can correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Kushni, but when all that is tabulated, is it the interview after that, or do we consider that as part of the scoring as well too? No, right?
So the way I viewed it is the oral, the written, the professionalism is all one score to weed down to the final three candidates. We take into account those overall scores. We allow them to do a final statement of anything they may feel they have left out or whatever their choosing is, you know, and whatever time if we do allow it, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, we use all of the information that we have. So the oral, written, professionalism, their resumes, their background, their final statements. We use all of that as a combination for tools for us to make our decision, whatever it is. So at that point, you know, we may like, you know, this person is really good in X and as and O's. This person is really good, seems like in human resources. How do we meld all of it? And I think this allows us to use all the information that we have to pick what we think will be the best candidate.
Okay, the one question I have is, when the candidate comes and makes a speech, are we allowed to ask him more questions?
I think they should just be allowed to give their 10-minute speak and we let them. I mean, I don't know. You know, I think it gets too complicated if we start having follow-up questions and all that.
I
think
know,
we
it's
just
like
allow-
another interview otherwise, that's why, so.
As an alternative, because, you know, if applicants say are interviewed early in the day and then they choose to leave and they're not watching for whatever reason, the other interviews and the scoring, they wouldn't know if they've been identified as the top three or not. And so logistically, then trying to schedule people to come back on the third day becomes somewhat of a challenge. Also, I would have concern about if we're talking about giving candidates the opportunity to come in and, or the commission wants to give the candidates the opportunity to come in and make a 5 or 10-minute presentation. If that presentation wasn't made by all of the top three candidates, from just the perspective of fairness, I don't think that would be fair. As an alternative, I don't know if the commission wants to consider allowing each applicant 5 minutes at the end of their interview to address things that they weren't, that, as you're mentioning, things that they felt weren't covered. And so every candidate who's being interviewed has that opportunity, and then you folks would have all of that information when you're going through and doing the scoring, just as an alternative for the commission to consider.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, no, anything else? Okay, so we can allow the candidates, every candidate, then 5 minutes after the interview to give a kind of a synopsis or to say, talk about anything that they didn't or wanted to have covered or wanted to say.
Commissioner Ibarra, I think we should actually be pointed on what we can probably have them say. I mean, if it's one of those where they gotta sell themselves or they gotta, I mean, prove to us basically why they deserve the position. I think the question's gotta be pretty precise, I wanna say. If that's, you know, if we allow them that. Because they're not gonna be wide open and next, you know, they'd be talking about stuff that's not even probably relevant to the position as well, too. So.
Okay, so if someone would like to make a motion, we can move on to the next item.
Well, you had a Commissioner Cushing's vote on the table.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, was it not seconded?
You
Oh,
didn't make a motion yet.
okay.
So Commissioner Kushni made a motion. I didn't hear a second. So there's no motion on the table. So I think somebody else needs to make a motion and second and then discussion based on however the commission wants to proceed with allowing the candidates to either have 5 minutes after the end of their interview to basically, is there anything else you would like to tell the commission that you haven't already covered on the day of the interviews? Or if at the end of the second day, you instead only want to call back the top finalists to ask that question.
I think Commissioner Kushni's motion just gotta be reworded probably now at this point, because yours was just for the last day, right? For them to, the three to come back. And I think it's now being changed to allowing everybody to have that 5 minutes time period during the interview. Emotion, yeah. So a new motion is what I've been told.
I'm fine with that, you know, if at the end of the interview, we give them 5 minutes to just, if there's anything else they want to say. Is there, being that it's at the end of the oral interview process, is this something that we're going to score somehow, or is this something that we're just gonna have as intangibles? You know, you know, I'm not sure how that would work, you know.
So at the end of our interview, we'll have a scoring, right? We'll have the written score and the oral score and the professionalism score and the top three candidates. So whatever the candidate had said, if we're using that at the last 5 minutes, that can be used for your or the commissioner's information for the selection of who they were selected as the chief.
So we use that portion as well to that 5 minute, is always, okay.
Okay, you want to make a motion for that?
Commissioner Kushner, I'll make a motion that at the end of the oral interviews, the candidates will be allowed 5 minutes to make a statement of their choosing at that point.
Okay, and for a point of clarification, that's not gonna be scored for the oral interview, but only used to select from the three finalists. Is that correct?
Correct, yes, because that's not one of the interview questions.
Commissioner Hano, second.
Okay, any discussion, public testimony? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. We can move on to the next item.
We're kind of doing number 3 too.
Yeah, so we are doing selection methodology and voting, including the use of scores to determine the appointment to establish pool of finalists, the composition of any such pool, the order of business of scoring, deliberation, and voting, the procedure if no candidate receives the required number of votes, and whether and how commissioners state the basis for their votes. So we kind of talked
Okay,
about.
so you guys, at this point, you guys kind of voted already to use the scoring rubrics to select a set of finalists, and that they're gonna, in addition, at the end of the interview question portion, you're gonna ask the additional question of they can sell themselves, right? Which is gonna be used as consideration for selecting the finalists from the final pool. So at this point, you guys, Commissioner Kushner kind of touched upon it before, but you should discuss what you're gonna consider and then how you're gonna vote to select the finalist.
Okay,
So
So-
that could include having each commissioner state the reasons or basis for their selection prior to the actual vote.
Right.
And
so we kind of talked about that. Once we get the three or the top candidates, then each commissioner will have the opportunity to articulate their reasoning and opinion on who they would select as the fire chief. And that is not the vote, but it's just giving their reasons of who they would select and why. And each commissioner will be given that opportunity. And at the end of that, then we would go through a vote and for each commissioner to vote on who their selection is for fire chief.
And I think Commissioner Kushni in the previous discussion was mentioning things that he would want the commission to consider in selecting the finalists as well. Is that still something that you wanted to discuss?
I think it was pretty clear that, I thought anyway, that the finalists were going to be selected from the oral, the written, and the professionalism scores. And then the final three will weigh everything, including their resumes and their background and, you know, their final statements that they made in the 5 minutes. We can use all the additional things to weigh our decision for when we get to the final three. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, so you can put that in a motion. So that would be the motion.
Okay, I make a motion for what I just said. Is that?
Everybody agree? Everybody understand the motion? So we would use the 5 minutes from the candidate at the end of the interview, in addition to all the resume and any information that we get from the candidates from HR to make a determination on who we would select and then articulate on that next day who we would select and why. And then would put it through a vote. And the top vote getter is the fire chief. Okay, so that would be the motion. Is that clear? Okay, so can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rabara. Any discussion or public testimony? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
Okay, I think you were talking about having commissioners state the reasons for their selection, but I don't think that was voted on as part of the process.
That was part of this.
Oh,
last.
part of his one?
Yeah, this is part of this last.
Was that part of your motion?
When,
That, I don't think that was part of my motion.
I mean, that was when each commissioner can articulate and.
Yes,
say-
I don't think that was included in part of the motion, but so if you want to.
I mentioned that in that motion.
My motion was that we're going to use all the information that we have for the final three candidates and making what, you know, each individual commissioner feels would be the best choice. I didn't go beyond that, but that's fine.
Yeah, so I think additional thing to consider would be whether or not each commissioner is going to state the basis for their reasoning before you vote, or if
Well,
they're,
I mentioned that. I mentioned that.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, so the next thing is what to do if you cannot agree, I mean, have 5 votes on a particular candidate. How are you guys going to resolve that?
Okay, so the question is, what if we don't agree on the candidate? We have 3 candidates and say the commissioners vote 3-3-3. What is the process you want to do to break the tie? We would need at least 5 to have a majority to carry out a motion or decision.
Just so I'm clear, so if only, say, 7 commissioners show up on the last day, we still are required to have 5
Yes.
votes for that?
Yes.
Yes. Even if we have only 5, we need all 5. So any comments, suggestions?
Does Corp Council have any suggestions? Because
Possible options, or you guys can continue discussions until somebody changes their mind, you guys could implement an additional procedure as a tiebreaker or something, maybe, I'm not sure, an additional question, or you guys could come back on at a different meeting and vote again.
Just out of curiosity, for human resources or however, like with the police commission, were the candidates all in attendance for the last day? And if we were in, having discussions and trying to select the final candidate, would we be able to like pull a candidate in and ask them a question, to clarify something at any point, or are we kind of stuck where we're at?
The commission would have to establish that process if you're going to allow for clarification. But I think that, we need to provide proper notice to candidates as far as what their expectation, what the expectation is as far as when they need to be present. So if there is the possibility that the commission is considering asking the candidates additional questions on the third day, that should all be part of the notice that we provide to them so that, again, they can make the arrangements. So it's really up to the commission what process you want to follow. I just want to make sure that all of the candidates are given proper notice.
Okay, so, what do you, any suggestions on how we would break the tie?
So getting back to what you're talking about as far as the police commission. So if I saw it on how it played out, you went to the last day and all the candidates were present rather, at that particular meeting, if I'm correct.
So I wasn't present for the meeting,
Oh,
but
okay.
it could be. It's just that if you, I don't believe that the candidates were told that they needed to be present for that final day. I think they may, so I'm just advocating for if you want the candidates available for some type of follow-up, we should be notifying them of that.
Right. Because if I saw that play itself out, all the candidates were there, and then you had public testimony that took place at the same time when everybody was there, yeah? And then after that was completed, I believe that's when they made their choice, and then they obviously named the finalists, or named the chief rather at that time, who was present in the room, yeah? Just wondering how that went down.
So your third session, that discussion session is a special meeting. So we'll be open to the public for public testimony, and members of the public can attend the meeting. The candidates could choose to attend the meeting as well.
HR doesn't have any rules pertaining to breaking a tie for employment.
It's a little different for, our regular civil service positions. So in this situation, the commission gets to decide what method they want to use for that tiebreaker.
Okay, that's a tough one. How does the jury pool do it?
Right.
Only joking.
So I guess back to what she just stated, are we allowing for public testimony on the final morning for, the final three candidates? And do we weigh public testimony in our decision as well?
So under sunshine law, you guys have to permit public testimony for every agenda item on the agenda.
And of course, I mean, it'll weigh, how can it not weigh in on, our decision, one way or the other, but. Okay, so, to get through this, if we do have a deadlock, and we don't have the necessary votes, for the fire chief,
Are we able to deliberate in executive session?
no,
Or,
that has to be an open session.
Uh,
So,
Yeah, so the only way you could deliberate in executive session is if an executive session
Go ahead, fine.
exception applied under 925A, which the conceivable ones would be discussions would have to be public.
in the event of a tiebreaker, can we make a decision that day on how we're gonna proceed, or do we have to figure that out right now? Because it may be a moot point and it not be an issue, but I think there's so many scenarios for breaking it. If we can't get out of the deadlock, can we make a decision on that day how to proceed from there, or do we have to decide now?
In fairness, I think it would be better for you to decide now, so it can't be used later to, modify the process to benefit one particular candidate over another.
yeah.
I mean, you guys could just decide to keep deliberating until you guys do make a vote.
Yeah, okay, so, I know this is a tough one, but, I don't anticipate it happening, but if it does happen, then, we can just say we will continue deliberating until we come to a final decision.
I motion to deliberate until we come to a final decision.
I second.
Thank you. Any public testimony, discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we can move on. Thank you. Are we up to notice of candidates yet?
Sorry, I'm gonna go back to one for scoring. So we have the additional 5-point criteria regarding professionalism, demeanor, and compliance with the process. In light of you folks selecting to use the scoring to just narrow it down, do you guys still want to keep that as part of the scoring for narrowing it down or not?
I'm good just keeping it as is.
Okay.
Okay, can we move to the notice of the candidates?
1 second. Okay, sorry, one more thing as to your folks' scoring. So on these scoring rubrics, there are sections for comments. Do you guys still want to keep comments just recommended, or should each commissioner be required to include comments on their scoring rubric for the oral interview?
I think it's optional. I mean, it would benefit themselves, when we make the selection process in reviewing it and giving the positives or negatives. I mean, hopefully not negatives, but just the positives on why they would select a certain candidate. But I don't think, it needs to be mandatory that each, commissioner write on every, write comments on every score. Does anybody have anything? We didn't.
Okay.
It's okay? Everybody good with that?
So Chair, as far as that goes, it's gonna be comments, well, actually recommended with comments, and not recommended. Does it go that, in that
No,
order? or
no, it's just
Just the
1
two?
to 5. The scoring is
Okay,
just 1 to
yeah.
5. Yeah, you wasn't here at the last meeting,
Yeah.
so yeah. The
So-
scoring rubric is just 1 to 5. Yeah, you can look at that.
Okay.
Okay, so the next issue is
Thanks.
whether a commissioner must attend the entire interview to score.
Okay, that, yeah. I think, I mean, and this is again up for discussion, but whoever is present on the final day of scoring is allowed to vote for the candidate on that day. Because that they would be, they would need to give their comments, positive or negative on their selection as to why. So, I mean, that's my opinion.
Okay, yeah, sorry, to rephrase, I guess it would be that all the commissioners have to be present for the entire day in order to score. Is that accurate? Is that your guys' understanding?
Yes. Yes, and they need to be, yes,
So nobody can leave early and come back or anything. They have to be there the entire time.
yeah, I think this is, yeah, important enough that we should take time out.
Okay, are there any other kind of, I guess, safeguards that you guys want to implement? Like commissioners cannot talk to any candidates either before or during the selection process or interview process, even during recesses, or any kind of restrictions? Or you guys want to do at the beginning of the interview day, do you guys want to give a not confidentiality, conflict statement that no, but everybody affirms that they don't have any conflicts?
We have to do that, right? I mean, that's legally, we have to do that, or ethically.
Well, that's for you guys to decide. Ethically, you guys would not be able to, or it would be up to you guys to recuse yourself from voting if you had a conflict. But at the
Right.
beginning of the session, you guys could make an affirmation that everybody affirms that they don't have any conflicts. But that's up to you folks. Just an example of, I guess, any
Okay,
additional safeguards you
okay.
guys want to.
So getting back to the first one about interaction with candidates. I mean, it's hard when we probably know the candidates, hard to not to say hi or, have minimal interaction, but I think it should be kept to a minimal and not any discussion. It just looks bad if the commissioners, any commissioner is talking to any one candidate or any of the candidates in that, I mean, other than, hey, hi, you can shake your hand or whatever, but I think it would be inappropriate to have any type of discussion during that time. And as far as this, just noting that nobody has a conflict of interest, I mean, do we have to make a motion to say we want to do that process?
If you want to, I guess, memorialize it as it is going to be part of the process, then a vote would be preferred.
Can we just, oh, yeah, I guess, so we make a motion saying that it'll be part of the process that we would affirm that we have no conflict of interest with any of the candidates?
Yeah, and I guess you could agree if you want that anybody who has a conflict will voluntarily recuse themselves.
Okay,
That's all up to you folks. Just trying to throw out like additional safeguards for you guys to consider or to
Yeah.
spark discussion.
I don't think we have to do that. I mean, unless somebody has a conflict, I don't think anybody with a conflict would not come out and say something.
Okay, then we can move on to the next item.
Okay, next item is notice to candidates, including contents, timing, manner of distribution, and release of candidates' names. So we kind of touched upon a few of these already. So after we finish this, you'll create that letter that'll go out to the candidates. And then from that letter, they have 7 days to respond. And once they respond, then the names would be released to the secretary and the mayor's office.
Yes, after the 7-day timeframe is completed, after we receive all the information back, we would release the names of the people participating in the process.
Okay, and the secretary would send it out to the commissioners.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay,
Yeah, so at this point, it would just be a matter of allowing DHR and myself to revise the notice to incorporate the decisions you folks made today.
yes, I think we made a motion in the past about that. But is everybody okay with allowing DHR and the corp council to revise the letter? Yes. Okay,
If we could just have it by vote.
Oh.
Just to incorporate all the things that you guys decided today into the notice.
okay, so I guess you have notes of what we incorporate into the notice.
The primary one was the notice of the sequestering.
Right. Yeah, that's the only different thing that's probably added on to the notice. So can somebody make a motion to add that to the notice and allow DHR and corp council the leeway to revise the notice to the candidates?
Commissioner Kushner, I make a motion that Human Resources and Corp Council can update the letter in accordance with what we decided today.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Inoue. Any discussion or public testimony? All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is passed. Next up. And we'll go
Sorry,
to
there
the-
was one more thing regarding the candidate letters. Because it's an open meeting, would you like us to also indicate in the letter to the other candidates who might not be familiar with Sunshine Law that they do have the opportunity to have people submit oral and written testimony?
You mean to
Just to give,
Note-
just
put
say,
that in the letter?
yeah, in the notice to the candidates, because some candidates might not be familiar with Sunshine Law.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Then, they can get whoever they want to provide testimony. Are you okay with that? Yeah, okay. So let's just make a motion to allow that to be added to the letter.
I make a motion that we add that to the letter.
Thank you. Second?
Second,
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. Any discussion, public testimony? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on. Okay, next is schedule, location, and notice of proceedings, including the dates, times, and locations of a written assessment or interviews, and any meeting necessary to complete the appointment and options for public viewing of the proceedings. So this is where, do we want to keep the date of August 27th? Or do we want to move it to September? It would be September 23rd, 24th, 25th.
I move to change the date to September 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
For clarification, we would keep the same structure, correct? Where the 23rd would be the written assessment, the 24th would be oral interviews, and the 25th would be selection discussion?
Do I need to repeat that? Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Any second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or public testimony? If not, all in favor of moving the date, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, dates are moved. So the next thing that we have to decide is if we're gonna keep our meeting date on August 27th or if we can.
Sorry. So just for clarification, are we keeping the venue Kona, or your regular schedule is to have the meeting in September in Hilo? Would we then shift everything to Hilo?
If I can just check something, I don't know if the Hilo chambers are gonna be open by then. Let me double check, please.
Okay, would HR be able to secure a place for a written assessment on the 23rd in Hilo?
Yes. I believe so. We'll have to check, but we should be able to.
Okay, so if you guys could vote on having it stay in Hilo as regularly scheduled?
Do we have to make a motion on that? It's already in Hilo.
Well, just to make clear that everything is shifting to Hilo.
Okay, somebody would like to make a motion saying that the assessment will be in Hilo on in September and not in Kona.
Commissioner Wolf? Assessment will be in Hilo, not Kona.
And all the process would be in Hilo as well.
The entire process.
Yeah, the entire process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanano, second.
Okay, any public testimony, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, okay, next now, can we talk about the meeting in August? Okay, we have our regularly scheduled meeting in August, on August 27th. But because actually we wanted to hold a special meeting just in case we needed to keep that August meeting. Because the assessment was going to be on the 26th to 28th. Do we still need to meet on August 27th? Or can we forego that meeting until the assessment?
Does Corp Counsel think that's necessary, or HR?
I think it would be a good idea. I mean, you have your regular scheduled stuff like the chief's report. That if we don't do the August one, essentially you won't have any chief report until October. And also as maybe like a backdrop, just in case additional issues come up that you want to address before the September meeting date.
Kona?
So-
August.
Yes, that's
Yes,
important.
so August 27th is currently scheduled for being here.
Yeah. No, we don't need a motion because it's already scheduled. So we would need a motion if we're not gonna have the meeting, I think. Okay, next.
Uh, Okay, so I guess the last point is, how do you guys plan to announce the final candidate? And offer the conditional offer? Is that all gonna be occurring on the third day? Or would you like to schedule that for the
Okay,
next
so
meeting?
we're on the number 6. So post-selection procedures.
Yes,
Okay, so including the sequence of selection, conditional offer, verification, and appointment, the terms of the conditional offer, the effective date of appointment, and the transition from the temporary fire chief, the announcement of the selection and notice of the outcome to the candidates. So, once we have the selection, I mean, What is the normal procedure? I'll defer it to HR.
I believe that it would be the commission that would provide the conditional offer. I don't know that we have the conditional offer that was issued when the police commission selected the police chief.
Commissioner Ibarra, so in regards to that, and you just made mention of the police commission time period. um, Again, we go back to proper notice, because if there's people that are coming to give public testimony in support of candidates, they'd have to obviously sufficient notice to those people as well too. Because the way I saw it play out for the, at least the police commission, on the day that they came to give testimony in support of whoever they were supporting, at the end of the day, they actually, awarded the position to the person they chose.
Sorry, so I was inquiring about how you folks want to go about issuing the conditional offer to the candidate that you guys ultimately select. Are you guys planning on having that be the
Just
same,
ask- I
the
mean,
same
yeah.
day? Or being that HR doesn't have one prepared, would you like to push it to the next meeting so that we could work on getting one prepared for your review?
Yeah, I mean, I just saying what I witnessed at that time. That the offer to that position that was made personally that day. It appeared that way, at least from what I was observing.
I think the notice, because the commission is the appointing authority, that any notification of any conditional offer selection would be coming from the commission.
We can wait for the chair to come back.
Yeah, wait for Gerald. For the police commission, police chief, how was that handled?
We don't have any documents, and so we believe that it must have been handled by the police commission and their secretary, because we don't have any copies of anything in HR.
Vice Chair Hanano, Kira Wong, Deputy Corporation Counsel, perhaps we can take a 10-minute recess and I can look into that and then come back and provide information for the commission to consider. So
Let's take a 10-minute break.
I'll come back at
Come
11:45.
back at 11:45.
Thank you.
Okay, can we call the meeting back to order? Okay, so we're still discussing post-election procedures?
Yeah, so the way that I believe the police commission did it, as you asked, was they provided the conditional offer after making the selection, and then at the next meeting, they met to determine whether or not all the conditions were met, and then did the final appointment.
Okay,
So that's the same way we can proceed now.
okay,
And then per your rules, upon the final appointment, then temporary chief will, by rule, stop being temporary chief.
okay.
So is that the way you'd like to proceed, to
Yes,
issue the conditional offer right after the selection? And then at
Yes.
the next meeting, I believe it's October 22nd, I think is our next meeting, or the next, we can just say the next meeting in October. That's when you guys will evaluate whether the conditions were met and do the final appointment.
yes,
Okay, and just as a reminder, the conditions that you folks set in the notice were a medical examination by the county physician, drug screening, and proof of a valid driver's license.
yeah,
So that's what they would have to comply with before the final appointment.
okay. And who releases the name after the conditional offer is met? Do you release it to the commission secretary? Commission secretary releases it to the mayor? Who?
Well, the commission would be identifying who their selectee would be.
So how does the mayor's office get it?
This is Deputy Corporation Counsel Kira Wong, so I would think it's when the decision is made by the commission in that October meeting would be when the mayor issues a press release.
Okay,
Yeah. And our office can help, with respect to facilitating and coordinating the medical exam scheduling, the drug testing scheduling. I understand the police commission, they had delegated that authority to individuals in HPD to ensure that, the chief wasn't involved in that process and didn't see that process for fairness. And so we can also help and work with fire department and also HR if needed to make sure that's all coordinated as well.
okay. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to find out how the name is gonna get out to me. So, Micah. Yes, sir. So, we're just discussing, how does the chief, how would the mayor get information on what the selection is made by?
Aloha Chair, Mike Alameda, Executive Assistant Office of the Mayor. We would receive the information the same way the public does by just watching the meeting virtually on Zoom. And then we would,
Okay, there's no official notification to the mayor.
no,
Okay,
that's the way it happened with the police commission. They
okay,
made their selection in open meeting and we just watched it and, yeah.
okay, got it. Thank you.
However, though, Chair, we will coordinate with you. If you would like to put quotes in that press release that we do send out later that day, we can absolutely coordinate with you and the commission.
Okay,
Okay? Thank
got
you.
it. Thank you. Okay, anything else?
Nope, so I guess the motion would be to issue the written conditional offer after the selection, which is contingent on medical examination, drug screening, and valid license, and have the October meeting be the final, anticipated final appointment date.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, so
is that? I'm just trying to follow you here. We make the conditional offer, he does all his screening
Yes.
And then at the next meeting, if he passes everything, then the next meeting is his start date, or the next meeting we determine the start date?
The next meeting would be the date that you vote on the final appointment. And then at that point, you can discuss start date with the then fire chief.
Okay, that would be the October meeting.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion? Can we have a second?
Commissioner Hong, second.
Thank you. Any public testimony, discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion has passed. On the post-election procedures, anything else? Perfect. Okay, we covered all of the the items that needed to be, or the i's that needed to be dotted and t's needed to be crossed. So our next meeting, we don't have any executive session, reason to go in executive session, and so we don't have any report. Any agenda items for the next meeting? If not, the next meeting would be on August 27th. And if anything is still loose at that time, we can tie up any loose ends. But by that time, we should have the names of the candidates, and the letter should have been gotten out and replies. So we would know more or less exactly how many candidates will be participating in the assessment, right? Okay, if not, any other questions? Anything else? Any announcements? If not, thank you very much. I know this meeting lasted a little longer than expected, but we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you.